script about a month after maybe 2 or 3 weeks after I'd completed it. It's a 31-page document. It's in script form, and it is very much the film that you guys just saw. It was, obviously not a lot of dialogue, but was very descriptive, kind of beat by beat, scene by scene, moment by moment. The idea had been going around in my head for probably a year and a half, kind of growing, and the way I write is that.
Please welcome our man, Robert Redford.
United Airlines did us in last night badly. So I completed this 31-page draft and gave it to my producers, and they were it was obviously non-traditional. It was a little bit outside the ordinary, but it did read like a film. It was pretty much almost identically what you just saw. So, the nice thing about the document, I think, is once you got over the fact it was a little shorter, it was, very clear as to what the film, I was trying to make was going to be. Whether we could pull that off or not, which I guess is the second part of your question. I don't think either of us sort of drew lines into what he was going to be able to do or not do physically. That was sort of a year off, really, from the first time we sent him the script. But we certainly both believed that the kind of action-oriented elements, especially in the first 2 acts of the film, I believed were very, very important. The film was is supposed to be a bit of a swashbuckling adventure. It's supposed to be nerve-wracking and intense, so that by the time you get to that 3rd act, emotionally you're sort of in a place where you feel, as an audience, almost like you've been through what he has.
Do either or both of you sail? And if so, alone? And if so, has this kind of possibility ever occurred to you?
I grew up sailing, not a ton, but I certainly have a background. My parents sailed together, sort of when they were younger, and so I certainly grew up sailing, had sort of long-standing history with it. I had done one open ocean sail like this, not alone. That's a sort of pretty significant leap to jump to that level. I had gone as a very low-level kind of helper crew guy, where we did get in some of these a storm sequence, not anything quite like this, but I had experienced that. It was sort of a great fear of mine, but I wanted to kind of push that, and I went on this trip, and we did the last 2 days get caught in something similar to this, and I was probably in my early 20s, and those feelings stuck with me. I don't think I realized it, but there is this tremendous sort of combination of claustrophobia combined with sort of total openness that is, and bizarrely the sound is something. When you read if you read the draft, there in all of these storm sequences. I actually reread the script a week ago. They asked me to sort of double check it before we got ready to release it, and the sounds are something that were very, very descriptively written in the script, and that's something I remembered from those, just like being alone in a house, all alone. Everything is kind of heightened from I always find sounds come to me, and in these kind of settings, it's even more so. The boat almost acts as a drum. So I do remember trying to sleep in one of these environments where it was like literally sleeping inside of a drum. It was horrible. And that's obviously something in this film that while he doesn't talk a lot, the sound design is just, the movie almost doesn't exist without it.
Now that you bring up the sound, I'm very curious about during the shooting, because obviously it was shot MOS. Were you directing as the camera was rolling? And how did you work that out?
It was the first week. It was kind of intense. I think we both realized, that was an opportunity for us to kind of, there was a ton of things going on. So we wanted to obviously, Bob sort of isolated himself in this amazing way throughout the process, so he would kind of come in once all the rigmarole hopefully was done and everything was teed up and ready to go. And then we did use that in a way, the film's not a silent film, but we were able to kind of act and direct it the way you would a silent film, where we could kind of use that, as an advantage, to be able to yell out cues that maybe he didn't even know were coming sometimes. Some of those sounds and things that he's constantly reacting to, sometimes I would yell those in, and I think the placement, we started to move the placement around, so I did, so that he wouldn't know when some of these things were coming at him. I don't know if that annoyed the heck out of you, but I know my editor was like, I had to turn down the sound because your stupid voice was over the entire movie when he was trying to cut it. But he put himself into this little bubble that was amazing.
Great editor, just a great editor.
Thank you, I agree. Did that annoy you, having me talk over the whole thing?
No, I thought I was supposed to play the role I did in the film. What do you want to know?
Frankly, I want to know, at what point did you start thinking, or did you ever think, I'm going to be totally alone on the screen for an hour and a half, just the way this guy is alone in the boat? And was that scary or not?
No, I'll tell you how this came about. Because I think that part is maybe interesting in terms of how the normal process works. These days, there's so many players in the kitchen, so many characters. You have agents, publicists, trainers, you have all these characters, advisors, that sometimes get in the way of a direct relationship with you and the artist you're going to be working with. And I'm sorry. Hello?
There you go. That's good.
When I met with JC, what I think is interesting, at least for me, on a personal level, is that it was just one of those rare situations where you go on vibe and instinct, and you put yourself very quickly in the hands of somebody else because you trust them. And I think the word is trust. And when I got the script from JC, it had a lot of things that I was very impressed with and attracted to. There was no dialogue, it was bold, but it also was detailed in a way that I felt this person really knew what they were doing, and they had a very firm grip on their vision, and there was a very strong vision. So when we met, I was already inclined, I just needed to know he wasn't nuts. So when we got together, for me anyway, it was very quick. It was like, okay, you're very detailed in your description. There's only 31 pages, that's great. What's on the 31 pages is very well defined, that's great. Suggesting that you have a very strong vision, and I'm attracted to that. Being alone, with no filter of dialogue. As an actor, I guess, the idea that attracted to me was that you could be completely absorbed in your character and hope that the silence would allow the audience to come in with you and be part of your experience. This all happened really quickly, and we didn't have a lot to say to each other because I was inclined to go with it and trust him, and I'm glad I did.
Did you ever talk about your character's backstory or any detail? Did you?
That was another thing that was attractive.
He tried.
There was another thing that attracted me was that it was slightly existential, which meant that you could allow space for to be interpreted by others. An audience could come in and decide which way, this way, that way they felt. Leaving that freedom open, I thought was really great. What was known, because I went through the normal motions an actor would reading a director, you know, what's on your mind. You have anything you want to talk about this story, you know? And he was pretty evasive. Well, huh. He's sort of not answering fundamental questions, which I wasn't happy to ask anyway, I just thought I had to. But what came out of it was there was a reason why he was being slightly evasive, and that what he had on the page was exactly all he wanted. And once I hooked into that, I liked it a lot, that you only knew, the person says, I tried, I think you know I tried. I mean, I was talking to a family, they all know something, but there's something missing. In whatever effort he's made in his life, there's something missing. And maybe this journey has to do with him trying to figure that out, or accomplish something that maybe fulfills a need that wasn't satisfied. So I just liked that. I just thought it was, when it's all said and done, I think this film belongs solidly to JC. It's his vision. His attention to detail was something I thought was really great, because I felt that there was so much attention to detail, so specific that it was dramatic on its own, and I was there to fill that out. The other final thing that I liked was that he was not a superhuman. He was not a superhero. He was not a super sailor. He was a good sailor, but not one of Larry Ellison's crew members. You know, he was a good sailor, but not a perfect sailor. And that left space to work with, where there had to be some improvisation, because once things got really bad, then there was things he didn't know to do. He had to go on instinct. He had to learn on the job, so to speak. I just found all that very interesting to work with as an actor.
I mean, Bob, there was something in this story that drew him. I walked into his office prepared to make a very in-depth presentation on why he should do the film, and as you could probably tell, he always teased me. He says, for a guy who wrote a movie with no words in it, you sure talk a lot, is what he always used to tease me. But I came into his office sort of ready to tell him all of this, and it really was probably 10 minutes, maybe not even, into this meeting that was a little overwhelming for me. And he just sort of looked at me and he literally said, you know, I just wanted to make sure you weren't, you know, a little crazy. This is kind of an out there idea, but it seems like you've thought this through. And he literally looked around and, you know, patted his knees and said, well, let's do this. And I'm sitting, you know, in Robert Redford's office, and, you know, there was, from that moment forward, literally, he, you know, it was like there was this trust that was, you know, I don't quite know, you know, where that came from, but, you know, it was a pretty unbelievable process that he had the confidence in the entire undertaking to just jump like that.
Well, I did not know JC. I only knew him from a film that we had premiered at our festival at Sundance, Margin Call, which I really liked. That's all I knew. I didn't know him.
Margin Call hadn't come out yet. I mean, this was a month after Margin Call premiered at Sundance, so he's making these decisions. And you know, my film was my first film was well received at Margin Call, but at Sundance, but it certainly wasn't this, you know, roaring success or anything. It hadn't kind of built any of that momentum, and there was just something in this idea that he obviously, you know, was drawn to.
Okay, I think we're going to open it up for questions. The guys with the mic, one on each side, are going to call on you and give you the mic.